I became the only TED speaker to say the words, "come on my face," on the TED stage. You do not have to have penis and vagina sex to have a good time. Sex nerd Sandra says, if your eyebrows aren't wet, you're not doing it right. The biggest turn on in this world is to be in bed with somebody and know they're having an amazing time because of you.
What if you could learn about sex through watching sex? I'm Dr. Rena Malik, urologist and pelvic surgeon, and welcome back to the Rena Malik MD podcast, your source for evidence-based information about your sexual health and more. Today, our guest is Cindy Gallop. She is the founder of Make Love Not Sex, the world's first user-generated, human-curated social sex platform where you can watch real sex. Today, we talk about what is the difference between pornography in the mainstream and Make Love Not Porn. We discuss what is the benefit of watching real sex and seeing individuals that maybe look like you or look like the body type that you're interested in versus what you see on mainstream pornography. We discuss how this is different from OnlyFans and how this may be of benefit to women, men, and couples learning about each other and enhancing their sex lives. Let's get to it. What makes someone good in bed?
Do you know, what I think makes someone good in bed is very, very simply, Rena, the ability to actually communicate in bed. And I say that because it may seem surprising, but understandably, because as a society, we are so messed up about sex, we don't talk about it openly and honestly. And what that means is that people find it hard to talk about sex generally, but they especially find it hard to talk about sex to the people they're actually having it with while they're actually having it. And that is a huge barrier to everybody having great sex and the kind of great sex they want.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, I always say on my channel, no one taught us how to talk about sex. And so, understandably so, we have this fear around talking about sex as parents with our kids. We assume the schools are going to do a great job. The schools teach very little, understandably so to some degree. They don't have a lot of time to dedicate to sexual education. And so they're left with education from their peers, from erotic films, which is not exactly accurate. And I think that's sort of how you came about with your platform. Is that right? It's called Make Love Not Porn. Tell us about it.
Make Love Not Porn is kind of an accident because I did not intentionally set out to do what I now found myself doing. But it came about because I date younger men. And gosh, something like 16, 17 years ago, I began realizing through dating young men that I was encountering what happens when two things converge. And I stress the dual convergence because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing personally what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets, as we've just cited, our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. It's when those two factors collide that porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. So when I realized this, I'm a naturally action-oriented person. I went, right, I'm going to do something about this. And so 15 years ago, purely as a little side venture, I put up on no money a tiny clunky website at makelovenotporn.com that in its original version was kind of a public service announcement. Porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world. Here's what really happens in the real world. I launched Make Love Not Porn at the TED conference in 2009. I became the only TED speaker to say the words, "come on my face," on the TED stage 6 times in succession. The talk went viral as a result, and it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. Thousands of people wrote to me from all around the world, young and old, male and female, straight and gay, pouring their hearts out, and I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And so that was when I turned Make Love Not Porn into what it is today, to make it more helpful, far-reaching and effective. To the point we've just been discussing, the issue isn't porn. The issue is we don't talk about sex in the real world. Because if we did, people would then be able to bring a real-world mindset when they view what is simply performative produced entertainment. So I decided that in order to make it easier for everybody in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex, I would very simply take every dynamic in social media and apply them to this one area of universal human experience that no other social platform allows. I turned Make Love Not Porn into what it is today, which is the world's first and only user-generated and importantly 100% human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So a kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily sexually self-express, which it clearly does not. The way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. We are literally sex education through real world demonstration.
So in terms of the differences between porn and between real life sex, maybe talk a little bit about what people could expect when they're watching your videos that are human curated, that are user generated, versus something they would see on pornography.
So basically, we make it very clear exactly what we're looking for content-wise, which is simply, a privileged glimpse into how we all have sex in the real world. There are a number of amazing benefits to this. The first is that at Make Love Not Porn, we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size, real world vulvas. And the reason that's so important is because you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love, but at the end of the day, nothing makes us feel great about our own bodies like seeing people who are no one's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having an amazing time in bed. In a world where every message popular culture sends us tells us you are not hot, sexual or desirable unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this. Our members write to us and say, you made me feel better about my own body. One man wrote and said, my girlfriend and I now feel able to be more open and sensual with each other because you made each of us feel better about our own bodies. And so Make Love Not Porn demonstrates that in the real world, what makes you hot is you. You are uniquely, your personality, you the person, is what is attractive, and then your body is hot as hell by virtue of being yours. Again, all around some popular culture, we see many depictions of, relationships, narratives about love and, intimacy, but we never see the actual sex. On Make Love Not Porn, you see the actual sex, but you also see the relationships. Because in our videos, those two things are indivisible. The connection, the love, it radiates through the screen. And by the way, you don't just see in our many, coupled, partnered, threesomed or moresome videos, healthy sexual relationship dynamics, at play. We have many solo videos, masturbation videos, male, female, trans, non-binary. In those videos, you see what it's like to have a healthy relationship with yourself, with your own body, your own sexuality, your own genitals. What is really interesting, Rena, about this is I designed Make Love Not Porn to be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. But in the 11 years we've operated as a business, we've discovered that Make Love Not Porn is especially a revelation to men. More men send us grateful emails, leave appreciative comments than anybody else. And by the way, women love us too, but this is especially noteworthy. Basically because we are something unique that men will find nowhere else on the internet, which is a safe space where men can be and watch other men being open, emotional, and vulnerable around sex. You will not believe how many men write to us regularly and say, I just watched my first video, Make Love Not Porn, and afterwards I cried. I've said for years, I wish society understood the opposite of what it thinks is true. Women enjoy sex just as much as men, and men are just as romantic as women. Yet neither gender is allowed to openly celebrate either fact, and we would all be so much better off if they were. I picked up a wonderful Twitter exchange a while back between two men. The first man had tweeted, as a joke, obviously, hey guys, got this really weird fetish. I've got this kink where I want to watch porn where people are honest, loving, loyal, decent, and really like each other. Hit me up with your honest links, please. Another man replied and said, there's this website called Make Love Not Porn where you can watch real couples making love. He said, I watched a video where a woman said to her man, I love you, while they're making love. He said sincerely, I cried when I heard that. We are just so moved to get that feedback, and we would love as many men as possible to enjoy the real difference in what we do, which is we are absolutely showcasing real world love, intimacy, and connection, which is available to all of us when we open up to it.
So I think what comes to mind and what I think people are asking is, how is this different than like OnlyFans, for example, where people are making user-generated content for, I mean, it's, for a variety of reasons, but some of it is to interact with others in a sexual way.
So we ask that question regularly, and so I can absolutely give you all the reasons we're different. The first, very importantly, is OnlyFans was founded by a group of male founders who absolutely wanted to benefit from the power of sex work, but did not design OnlyFans to keep the people who do that work safe. Okay, so OnlyFans does not have security and safety at the heart of it, and that is why it is relatively easy to be doxxed, stalked, etc. I designed Make Love Not Porn through the female lens to be the safest place on the internet, because as women, we know what it's like to be at risk every single day. And so there is no self-publishing of anything. Our curators watch every video from beginning to end before we approve or reject, and we publish it. We review every post on every member profile. And by the way, those posts can be as safe work or not safe work as you like, but we review them, approve, reject, and publish them. We review every comment on every video before we approve or reject and publish it. And the important thing there, Rena, is that we're tiny bootstrapping, have no money, and we've human created everything for 11 years. Imagine what OnlyFans could do with its billions if it chose to. Safety on the internet is not a matter of viability, it's a matter of will. Then the next difference is, on OnlyFans, you are performing for the fans. To make money, you need to do what the fans want you to do. No matter whether you actively enjoy what they want you to do, no matter whether you feel debased or degraded by it, on Make Love Not Porn, nobody is performing for anybody. We give our Make Love Not Porn stars, as we call our creators, a lot of tips on how to set it and forget it. Set your phone on a tripod, use your webcam, and then just forget it's there, and have sex the way you always love to have sex. So nobody is fulfilling requests. Our members feel grateful and honored and privileged to be able to have this glimpse into somebody else's real world sex life. Thirdly, OnlyFans is a 24/7 job. If you want to make money, you've got to keep refreshing that content, coming up with new stuff. On Make Love Not Porn, you might feel like sharing a video 1 month, a few months go by, before you decide you want to share the next one. In the meantime, the videos you have uploaded are making passive income. There is no pressure on you to keep churning out that content. Something we do that, by the way, virtually nobody else on the internet does is our commitment to you as a Make Love Not Porn star is the moment anything changes, relationship, life circumstances, even just your mind, you tell us, we take the videos down immediately, they're gone forever. And what I mean by that is there is no application process. There's no online form. There's no waiting period. You literally just message us, and within 15 minutes, as somebody did the other day, your videos are gone. OnlyFans makes it very difficult to take your videos down, as many people can tell you. And by the way, this is something that astonishes me about OnlyFans, because they could do this so easily, but they choose not to. OnlyFans does not promote any of the creators and the content on its platform. And by the way, they obviously have a huge community. They could very easily do that. And what that means is something like, 1% of OnlyFans creators make 90% of the income. Because what that means is that OnlyFans works really well if you import a following from somewhere else. If you're a well-known porn star, a big TikToker, a musician, then your fans come with you. But if you are Mr. or Ms. Average who can't pay the rent, who's decided to go on OnlyFans to try to do that, promoting your content is entirely up to you, and you're going to struggle to make money. At Make Love Not Porn, we do the promoting for you. Every week we send out several emails to our members. We theme them around different video themes, al fresco in the spring when everyone's, having sex outdoors, or in the kitchen, because again, people often, have sex in the kitchen in everyday life. We promote our videos and Make Love Not Porn stars on all our social channels, in media interviews. Obviously, some of our Make Love Not Porn stars do choose to promote on social media as well, but you don't have to. We are promoting everything for you. So those are a few of the differences between us and OnlyFans. But it really boils down to, Rena, the fundamental difference is on OnlyFans, you are performing for an audience. And on Make Love Not Porn, you're sharing the sex you have in the real world.
Are you sick of going to the doctor only to have them talk at you for 15 minutes and leave without knowing exactly why they're prescribing you this certain medication and what exactly the next step is to take to optimize your health? Wouldn't it be great to finally find a doctor who actually listens to you, answers your questions, and doesn't rush you out the door? Well, at my practice, Rena Malik, MD, I aim to do just that. I specialize in taking care of patients who have issues with their sex lives, issues with their bladder, with their hormone health, or are having pain in their pelvic region or with sex. My goal is to give you the time and attention you deserve so you can leave with a clear understanding of your condition as well as our treatment plan that's optimized for your goals. During your visit, I'm 100% present with you for an entire hour. And after you leave, you can reach me. It is super easy to send me a message through our secure portal, and I'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. No questions asked, no hidden fees. Scheduling is easy. Just visit our website, renamalikmd.com/appointments. We see patients in both Irvine and Beverly Hills, California, and I see patients virtually in California, Florida, Illinois, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Oh, and don't forget Texas. If you're outside these states, consider seeing me for an educational visit. I look forward to seeing you. And so from an audience perspective, in terms of watching Make Love Not Porn, you're really just like a voyeur. You're like watching someone else doing whatever they may be doing, and you might find interest in it because you chose to watch that video, but it's not made for you specifically.
And so the really interesting thing, Rena, is that as a unique venture, we have a unique capability. We have the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better in a way that very few other things can. So in the 11 years we've operated, we've taught countless young people that porn is not sex in the real world. Gen Z loves us. We have saved numerous marriages and relationships. That is literally how people write to us, "You saved my marriage." We hadn't had sex in years. We came across Make Love Not Porn, with social sex. Couples watch our videos together. And those lead to amazing communications and sexual breakthroughs. People write and say, "Best sex since our wedding night." And as with any disruptive technology, use cases emerge that the founder never dreamt of. So I was blown away when we began hearing from survivors of rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse. We hear from female survivors, male survivors, trans non-binary survivors. They tell us that Make Love Not Porn helped them reclaim their bodies. We help them feel able to be sexual again post-trauma in a situation where porn is way too triggering. And it's not just people who watch our videos. We have several Make Love Not Porn stars who tell us being able to share themselves sexually in a completely safe and trustworthy space has helped them process and heal from sexual trauma. That's not a use case I ever envisaged when I came up with this idea. I'm so grateful it is.
Yeah, this is amazing. I think that there's a lot of moral high ground when you're watching, people are talking about watching any sort of sexual act, right? Pornography, Make Love Not Porn, anything like that. People are like, "Oh, this is destroying humanity. This is horrible. How could we be promoting this? How could we be talking about the benefits of pornography? There are none. People are addicted. It's horrible." What is your response to that?
I have two responses. And the first one is in terms of Make Love Not Porn. As our name says, we are not porn. As our tagline says, we are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. And we are pioneering a whole new category of one at the moment, which is social sex. Separate to that, the documentary to Porn's Hollywood movie. There are a couple of important things I would like our listeners to know about porn. The first is, I encourage people not to use the word porn like it's all one big homogenous mass. Because that's like using the word literature to say it's all the same thing. The landscape of porn is as rich and infinitely varied as the landscape of literature. There are as many genres, subgenres. What a lot of people don't realize is that the porn industry is dominated by one massive monopoly, which would not be allowed to exist in any other industry, but nobody wants to bring antitrust legislation to porn. A company that used to be called MindGeek, then rebranded itself last year as ALO, owns pretty much everything in mainstream porn. ALO owns Pornhub, YouPorn, RedTube, Brazzers, men.com, sex.com, etc., etc. And so that is why when you go to any one of those mainstream tube sites, what you're looking at is remarkably similar. I have a number of friends who are brilliant, independent, feminist, female queer pornographers who are producing very different types of porn. Very creative, innovative, not following non-consensual tropes, etc., etc. But because of the stranglehold that ALO has on the industry, they cannot find the numbers, the traffic, the revenue they deserve. And so, honestly, it would be a very good thing for the industry as a whole if that monopoly were not allowed to exist, because like a monopoly in any industry, it has a stranglehold on independent creativity, innovation, and disruption.
I think that's so valuable. I mean, I see men all the time as a urologist who are struggling. They may have psychogenic ED from inadequate expectations or, expectations that are not being met in the bedroom because of what they're seeing on pornography, or they're having body issues, body image issues that, my penis is not long enough, my penis is not girthy enough. And unfortunately, there's a huge desire for that. I mean, more men want to be longer or girthier than they want to be taller. And so it's a real problem. And a lot of it, I believe, stems from pornography and society thinking bigger is better. And I love that you said in your site, you don't necessarily always portray, only large and well-endowed men, because that's not necessarily what all women want.
Our male make love not porn stars are real-world men with real-world bodies. And I'll tell you what's also interesting in the context of what you just said, Rena. We hear regularly from cancer survivors, male and female. We got an amazing email from this married couple, married 20 years, very happy sex life. Then the husband was diagnosed with a prostate cancer, operated on, fortunately, cancer-free, but erectile dysfunction resulted. And they'd had a thriving sex life. They were very happy about this. They went to see a therapist who said to them, there's this site called Make Love Not Porn, go and check it out. And they wrote us this massive long email about how grateful they were. They raved about our videos, our Make Love Not Porn style community. It had transformed their sex life. And what is really interesting, Rena, is they said, in fact, our sex life now is even better than it was before the operation. And while they didn't go into specifics, I suspect that was very likely because what we showcase on Make Love Not Porn is all the amazing ways you can enjoy yourself and each other that do not involve penetrative sex. In the real world, you do not have to have penis and vagina sex to have a good time. In fact, you often don't necessarily need to have an orgasm to have a good time. But something else that we did on the language front that I think is quite important as well is I said to my team back at the beginning, I want to find a term for the female version of blowjob that is as quick, easy, and simple to say. Because cunnilingus doesn't hack it, oral sex. And I said it's important because when something is quick, easy, and simple to say, it gets said a lot more, it gets asked for a lot more, and it happens a lot more. So our tag for the female version of blowjob is lick job. And our lick job videos are enormously popular on Make Love Not Porn, because in the real world, as my friend sex nerd Sandra says, if your eyebrows aren't wet, you're not doing it right. And so on Make Love Not Porn, you can see what very happy real world lick jobs look like. And, as I say, that is just another way in which we are celebrating all the wonderful ways you can have a good time that not involve penetrative sex. And I think men especially appreciate that. And by the way, again, this is the real world version I said. So it's not the porn version where there's all this tongue flicking and ridiculousness going on that we do not enjoy, And so, but we are literally sex education through real world demonstration. We inspire people, we educate them, we give them ideas. And what's interesting too is, we hear from people who say, wow, I never thought that I would ever get turned on by this, but my wife and I watched this video and it was fantastic. Actually, my wife said, why don't we try that? And it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There was a very popular book called She Comes First by Ian Kerner. And I read the book and I was like, oh, this is basically demonstrations of how to give oral sex, right? The large majority of the book is demonstrative. And I was like, wow, this is how desperately people need this information. It's not taught. And I will tell you, the people that I've met in life who've been very skilled at oral sex are usually because they've learned from some female partner who's told them you're doing it wrong, and they've communicated how to do it.
My background is 39 years working in advertising. I've spent 39 years working in the business of communication. I know, therefore, that everything great in life and business is born out of great communication. Sex is no different. Great sex is born out of great communication. And by the way, I'm fully aware, I go, okay, we're going to have a conversation about this. And I know the moment I embark on that conversation, the atmosphere in bed will change. But I have to do this for every other woman he will ever sleep with. I want women and men to understand is actually we all welcome that communication. I've dated utterly lovely younger men, very attractive younger men who had a ton of girlfriends. It became extremely apparent because I was having this conversation that they had literally never ever talked in bed about what was going on or in any way to make things better for either of them. I talked a very nice young 20-year-old gentleman through how to make me come when he was inside me. And he did, and I was thrilled, and he was thrilled, obviously. And he said to me afterwards, I've really learned a lesson from you. I am going to start communicating about all of this in bed because he never ever had. It boils down to communication, and everybody welcomes that communication because honestly, the biggest turn on in this world is to be in bed with somebody and know they're having an amazing time because of you. And not enough people get to experience that for real.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you my whole platform, the videos that perform the best or the content that performs the best is literally about pleasure, right? About pleasuring your partner. Everybody wants to pleasure their partner better, right? They want connection. They want to make sure their partner gets off. Women are not this mysterious, complex box that we're built to be, but you're not taught how to do it, right? When lesbians have sex on the first time encounter, 90+% of them orgasm. When men and women have sex for the first time encounter, it's like 45%, right? There is an educational gap where women know our own bodies so we can, please other women if we so desire, right? And I think there's really this thing, and you brought up an interesting point about attractive men. And I think probably the same for attractive women is they get so many options thrown at them that they never necessarily need to learn those communication skills, right? Because they'll just move on to the next attractive, available person to them and have sex with them. So it's interesting. I think that's a really interesting comment that you made that this person was very, very attractive, had lots of sex, and still had not really understood how to pleasure a female.
You've just reminded me of another young gentleman, Rena, where it was a bit of a different scenario because, so this other gentleman was, gorgeous. He was on the wrestling team at his university, body like a Greek god. I make a point of actually telling the men I sleep with how beautiful they are. And by the way, I don't mean conventionally beautiful. I mean, every man I sleep with is beautiful in his own way. And I do that because, again, porn teaches men that sex is entirely dick-centric, when there is so much else about every single man that is gorgeous. I mean, for example, I have a real thing for male forearms. Show me a sexy muscled forearm, a slight furring of hair, I'm out, basically. And so I make a point with the younger men I sleep with of telling them how beautiful they are. And I use that word because, we don't use that word of men sufficiently in society, that there's a presumption that women can be called beautiful. Only certain men, the supermodels or the actors or whatever, can be called beautiful. And I remember this young gentleman, this 20-year-old, the morning after sitting on the edge of my bed and saying to me shyly, "You make me feel so sexy." I'm guessing that's because I remember myself as a 20-something young woman, by the way, very insecure. I was much more worried about, how's my body showing up in the bedroom and what does he think of me? And at this age, I don't care what he thinks of me because I think I'm great. I'm going to tell him how gorgeous I think he is. And I'm going to praise everything about him that I really appreciate. And that resulted in, this 20-year-old saying, "You make me feel so sexy," clearly in a way that nobody had before. So it cuts both ways, actually, interestingly.
Absolutely. And I think, it's interesting you bring this up, but we find that in the literature, in the scientific literature, that as women age, they tend to have better sex because they become much more secure in their body image. They become much more secure in their abilities. We don't see that for men. And I suspect it's because as men age, the likelihood of erectile dysfunction goes up, and then they start feeling insecure about that, which, as you've already alluded to, you don't need to have a firm erect penis to have pleasure or give pleasure to a partner. But it is really difficult, I think, for men to wrap their heads around that. So in terms of something like where say a man wants to watch Make Love Not Porn with their partner, how would they bring it up to them? What's a good way? What are some tips that you may have for them to say, hey, like I've never talked about porn or watching any erotic film with my partner, but I think this would really help our relationship right now. So how would you suggest they bring that up?
So I would suggest they say, I came across this website called Make Love Not Porn, emphasizing the not porn bit. It's not porn. It's actually how people have sex in the real world. I think it sounds interesting. Why don't we watch it together? What is interesting, Rena, is again, the way we present these videos of Make Love Not Porn, because we are socializing sex, we're normalizing it, destigmatizing sex. One couple said to us, the way you present these videos is when we watch together, it felt as natural and normal to talk about what we're watching as if we're watching Netflix, or TV. And then from talking about what was going on in your videos, it was one short step to talking about our own sex life and making some real communications breakthroughs. The moment you land on our site, the experience is very normalized. It's very natural. Everything is presented in that way. We asked each of our Make Love Not Porn stars to make a free-to-access intro video. And it's entirely up to them what they put in that video, but we asked them to contextualize their real-world sex, because real-world sex has context. There's a backstory, relationships. So this happened when, the kids were outside playing. We thought, great, let's grab this moment. We popped into the garage. We had sex. Oh my God, all the boxes came tumbling down. I mean, this is very much what happens in the real world. The fun thing is that you get to know the Make Love Not Porn stars as well. I always remember a man wrote to us and he said, I never pay for porn. I was curious about your site. I thought I'll check it out because we have a subscription model. I went, I'm not going to pay for this. And as I said, the intro videos are free to access. He said, I began watching an intro video and I was so interested in the couple. I went, I have to see how these guys have sex that I paid to watch the video. And so you are meeting people, and these are all real world people. You are, as I said, getting this privileged glimpse into their real world lives, and they're really interesting, fully dimensional people. Then you get to see how people have this wonderful loving sex in the real world. We have Make Love Not Porn stars who've been with us since the beginning, 11 years. So you get to see them literally, you get to see them date and the sex they're having, but then they get married. We have honeymoon sex. Then they get pregnant. We have a lot of Make Pregnant Love Not Porn videos, which, by the way, are very useful for figuring out the best positions when you are pretty far along. Then they have the baby. Then there is naturally a bit of a hiatus while you get used to this world-rocking event. But then some months later, especially because they want to reclaim their sex lives, then they're back. And then it's right, we put the baby down, we're going to have a quickie now. And so you see people in all these real scenarios. And actually what's interesting too, Rena, especially given what you do, is as the only platform celebrating real world sex, we also showcase how people manage their real world sex lives through real world health conditions. So we have a number of menopausal Make Love Not Porn stars. They talk about the impact menopause has on their sexuality, their partner's sex lives, how they're managing through that. We have Make Love Not Porn stars with vaginismus, common in many more women than people realize, who talk about how they're dealing with that. We have many older Make Love Not Porn stars, and they talk about the impacts of aging. We have people with chronic pain conditions. Orgasms really help, chronic health issues. As I said, post-cancer survivors. We have a Make Love Not Porn star who not that long ago had a full hysterectomy. And so she is sharing how she is reclaiming her body from that. And so this is where you get inspiration and education in a real world context. As you know, so many health and medical professionals are too embarrassed to address these issues in situations like cancer treatment, etc., even though people are desperate for them to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a huge issue with people treating cancer and then, great, your cancer's gone. You're good. You're good. But there's a whole life, right? There's a whole field we call survivorship. But like part of it is your sex life after having cancer and how you reclaim that. And it's a big part of people's lives. And I think people really forget that, right? And just to contextualize, you mentioned vaginismus. For people who don't know, that is essentially when the pelvic floor muscles are very, very tense and inserting anything in the vagina can be painful. So that could be very difficult for those people to have sex. And so that's amazing that you have people on your platform, who are successfully having some form of intimate sex with that condition is really, really impressive and really amazing.
And they talk you through the journey so you can go on the journey with them if this is something that you also are suffering from.
Quick break from this episode to let you know I am so grateful that you're spending part of your day with me. I started creating content online to empower people to learn more about their bodies without needing to go see a doctor, pay a copay, wait in a waiting room, or find parking. And it has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. If you want to help support our mission of providing free education, please consider joining our premium membership. There you will have access to ad-free episodes, which are released early, as well as free transcripts and the opportunity to ask me anything. And these questions are answered in our monthly AMA episodes. Support the show and join today at renamalik.supercast.com. Can't wait to see you there. So it's been 11 years and I've heard you on other platforms mention how difficult it's been to get support and financing for this project, which to be honest with me was shocking because we see people obviously like OnlyFans, Pornhub, whatever, they get tons of advertisers, tons of money from that. We see sex toy companies, we see all these sort of sex tech related things that do get financing, but it seems like this has been a real challenge and you can't actually get financing in the same standard ways. You can't even get a bank account.
You know, you're absolutely right, Rena. I mean, I had no idea when I embarked on this that I, my tiny would fight a battle every single day, not even to grow the business, just to keep it going. Basically because every piece of business infrastructure other tech startups take for granted, we can't, the small print always says no adult content. And that's all pervasive. Couldn't get a bank account, can't get funded, can't put payments in place. PayPal won't work with adult content. Stripe that takes credit cards on the internet won't. We're banned from promoting advertising ourselves. And I think the important thing for listeners to know is that there is a gendered bias here. When I say we're banned from advertising, it's not just Make Love Not Porn. Any female lens, sexual health and wellness venture also can't advertise. Menstruation, menopause, fertility. While male sexual health is welcomed, which is why you will see erectile dysfunction solutions, marketed everywhere. To your question, even within the world of sex tech, there is what I call a hierarchy of acceptability. Sex toys now are a known sector, they're familiar. They're a lot easier to raise funding for. Make Love Not Porn still operates out of the extreme end of, oh my God, people having sex on video, which is why I'm so grateful that earlier on this year, the wonderful actress Jamila Jamil, who's a big fan of Make Love Not Porn, actually proposed to us that she be our lead investor in our first ever equity crowdfunding campaign. And it's our first ever because historically no crowdfunding platform would welcome us either. But Jamila brought us to WeFunder. And so we've launched a crowdfunding campaign there. We're targeting $1 million. We're a third of the way there. So listeners, please do go to wefunder.com/makelovenotporn, invest. And by the way, this is absolutely an equity investment campaign. It's not donations. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed, but I and my team are going to do our damnedest to add an additional zero to any figure that anybody invests. But the great thing is that this crowdfunding campaign is enabling us to build something that I've had in the pipeline for 10 years because parents and teachers began begging me for this from day one of Make Love Not Porn, but I've never been able to raise the funding to do it. So this is enabling us to build makelovenotporn.academy, the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education expansion. This is what I characterize as the Khan Academy of sex education, because Khan Academy tutors on every other topic under the sun except this one. The Academy will work in the same way as Make Love Not Porn, user-generated, crowdsourced, curated revenue share. So I'm not about reinventing the wheel. This is an aggregation play. We're building the go-to global hub for the best of the world's sex education content. And so we are inviting educators all around the world. I use the term very, therapists, sexual health and wellness experts, podcasters, people like you, obviously. We're inviting them to share their content on Make Love Not Porn Academy. And by the way, in whatever capacity they wish to. But the idea is that at a time when open, healthy sex ed is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere, you'll be able to search the Academy by age appropriateness. So if you're a parent freaking out going, oh my God, my 6-year-old asked this, what do I say? We'll help you have that conversation. You can search by cultural sensibility. We have Christian sex ed, Jewish sex ed, Muslim sex ed. And very importantly, you can search by personal comfort level. This is where we aggregate all of this content so that you can pick and choose what's right for your family, what's right for your classroom, what's right for your school. But also, very importantly, Rena, this is where we want to help promote educators and enable them to monetize their work. Because in 15 years of Make Love Not Porn, I've built up a network of amazing sex educator friends all around the world who face all the same challenges I do. Their content gets blocked on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Their accounts get suspended. They're banned from advertising. They can't even make a living doing this. They've had to take other jobs to survive. And I want to change that because this is enormously valuable work. So yeah, the We Fund is helping us build the Academy, which we hope to launch in a few months' time. And so listeners, if you like the sound of all of this, please do come and invest.
I think sexual education around the world is horrible. Forget the United States. I mean, it is really insufficient, inadequate, in some cases, none at all. And people are suffering. Like I see it every single day. People are suffering because they don't know what's normal. They don't know what's abnormal. They don't know what should happen when they penetrate with their penis, or, why their partner's not orgasming in seconds, and like all these things. And then they feel so much shame and they have no one to talk to about it. And, I always say, like, I wish that we could talk openly about sex. That would be my one wish for the world, is like that everyone knew how to talk openly about sex. If you had ultimate power and you could put into legislation things that you would see would improve sexual education, communication, sex for the entire population, what do you think it would be?
I would just say it's not as simple as legislating, because unfortunately, as we all know, rules are made that do not trickle down to where they really need to take effect. And what I mean by that is all of this has to start in the home. There are countries like the UK that do actually mandate sex education. There are countries like the US where there are a number of states that mandate not to educate children about sex, and around the world that's the case. What I want to do with what I'm doing is make it really easy for parents to feel able to talk to their children about sex as early as possible. There are two pieces of advice that I've had to give to parents for 15 years. The first is, today, parents, you cannot begin talking to your child about sex too early. And when I say that, I don't mean literally talk about sex, but what I mean is the very first time your child asks where babies come from, plays with their genitals, the most important thing isn't even what you say as much as how you say it. Never ever get visibly flustered. Never get embarrassed, never shut them up, change the topic of conversation, leave the room. Instead, answer them calmly, straightforwardly, and honestly. And the moment you do that, you open up a channel of communication between you that will always be there for them as they get older. The one thing a parent wants above all others is for their child to be happy. This area will impact your child's happiness more than almost anything else. And then the second thing I say to parents is, today, when you talk to your child about sex as early as possible, you must also at the same time talk to your child about porn. And this is much easier to do than you think, because all you have to do is say a version of what I'm about to share, and you dial it up or down depending on the age of the child. So you go, so darling, we just talked about sex. And you know how together we watch movies and videos and cartoons where things happen that aren't real. There are also movies and videos about sex, and they're not real either. And because of that, they can be quite confusing. And so we would rather you did not watch them till you're older. But if anybody ever shows you anything like that, or you stumble across it, come and talk to us, come and talk to me. We can explain it. That's all you have to say. You can end the conversation right there. Because just by saying that, you've done two very important things. The first is you've set up in their minds when they stumble across porn, as they will, it's not real. And the second thing you've said is, come and talk to me about it. You want to do that because what they stumble across can be utterly traumatizing.
Absolutely. I mean, I talk about it all the time. I've actually talked to both my sons now about sex, about pornography, and I started talking to them around 8, I would say, probably around there. We know that the average age for a young person seeing porn accidentally or purposefully is 10. So that's the average, meaning there's some younger, some older. And they're going to be curious, they're going to feel confused. And if we start with this this discussion of shame, like stop doing that, don't touch yourself, or I don't know what to do when they ask about sex. Like, yeah, you may not know what to do. And I totally understand that. I just say like, look, give me a minute. I'll talk to you about it at this moment in time. And so you have time to sort of think about how you want to respond, maybe do it in a location where you can not have to look at them, go for a walk, whatever it is. But, I think it's important to address them when they bring up these questions. Like if you don't answer them, they will find answers one way or the other, and they will likely not be well-informed answers.
Oh my God, Rena, absolutely. We held a wonderful event in London last week to fundraise for the Academy, which Jamila Jamil came and spoke at on a panel with me. And she said something really important. She said, ignorance does not lead to innocence. She is very frank about the impact that seeing porn at an early age had on her own self-esteem and her relationships. She said, if I'd been educated at an early age about sex, I would have kept my innocence much longer. And that's a really important fact. You are not protecting your children's innocence by keeping them ignorant. As you said, Rena, you're going to send them to places that their curiosity will take them that will destroy that innocence very rapidly. And the best possible thing you can do for your child is to educate them about sex and porn as early as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, I've walked across people watching a computer in a public space looking at porn, right? Like in a library. And I was like, my kids could have walked by, right? Like they're going to see it whether you want them to or not. They're going to have questions. And I think it's really ignorant to say all porn is bad and it should go away. First of all, it's probably never going to happen. And second of all, that's not a solution, right? That's not a solution to the problem. I think porn can be used in a very healthy manner. I'm open about that. I think when you're a fully formed adult, you know the difference between real and fake. You can use it to help pleasure. You can use it to help entertain, whatever. That's totally fine. And I think that it's a matter of but when you're young, you don't have a fully formed frontal lobe. You don't know what to do with that. And when it's something where you're guiding your child through it, it can be much more beneficial for their mental health overall and how they're going to view relationships and sexual interactions for the rest of their lives.
Are you feeling in a rut in the bedroom, wishing you had the kind of sex life you could brag about? I've spent years helping patients and creating content for people all around the world to improve and optimize their sex life. Today, you can get my knowledge for 100% free with my new ebook called Better Sex, Better Life. In this ebook, I review my top 10 tips for improving your sex life, all from the comfort of your own home. All you have to do is go to renamalikmd.com/morepleasure to download it for free today.
We end our podcast with questions that we ask everybody. They can be about your work. They can be about you, anything you want to share. So what's something you know now in life that you wish you knew earlier?
Something I wish I'd known earlier in life is just how wonderful it is to be this age, and how much life just gets better the older you get. And when I say I wish I'd known that earlier, I want every woman and every man to know that earlier, because I've been combating ageism for a long time. And ageism tells people that the moment you pass 40, life is on a downward trajectory. And it's not. As I said, life gets better the older you get, not least because when you pass 40, you have as long to live again as you've lived to date. What are you going to do with that? And so, I absolutely know this now. I've known it for many years. But, I would just love to be able to make sure that everybody understands that, because do not fear getting old. Do not subscribe to this fetishization of youth. Know that the older you get, the more valuable you become. The older you get, the more you know what really matters in life, relationships, friendships. The more you have your own sense of personal style, the more you don't give a damn what anybody else thinks. That is the only way to live your life. I say this to my own industry. Marketers, popular culture makes the mistake of thinking that old people want to be young. We don't. Young people aspire to be us, because everything I've just talked about is extremely aspirational. Tap into and enjoy the aspiration of age. Look forward to getting older and just know it's going to be a wonderful experience.
I can't agree more. I think I am much more self-assured, very comfortable in my skin, and I do things for me. Whereas when I was younger, I would do things because I felt that's what people expected of me, or that's what my parents expected of me, or that's what society expects of me. And, less and less. And I think, yes, I completely agree. I do wish people embraced it as equally in terms of appearance and not not, changing their appearance just to appear younger, because I think it's, I think being age has its own beauty. And I think aging has its own beauty. And I think it would be wonderful if people would just accept that.
And actually, Rena, that is absolutely what we demonstrate on Make Love Not Porn. And I mean, we have a ton of older Make Love Not Porn stars. People write to us and say, I'm 70, my wife and I still have a thriving sex life. I'm thrilled that you are celebrating Make Older Love Not Porn. And we absolutely show you can carry on having a great sex life for as long as you want.
Yeah, I think there's power in seeing people that look like you having sex, right? And having a thriving sex life. There's so many people who give up and they're like, oh, I'm just done. I'm too old. And it's sad because there's so much joy and pleasure and intimacy. It doesn't have to be penetrative intercourse if that's not what you want or can do, but there's so much other things that you can enjoy being with each other. And if you just throw that away, then you have to connect in other ways, which may or may not be accessible to you.
Absolutely.
What's a non-negotiable, something you have to do every day?
I would say I have to get enough sleep. I'm a big fan of sleep. Sleep is a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful driver of good health as well. And I just absolutely love sleeping. It's my second favorite activity after sex, And so what I do try and do every day is get enough sleep, because I just think that's very important as a de-stressor, as I say, something that really is tremendously contributory to your health and your well-being. As a general rule, get more sleep.
Oh, I love sleep. Sleep is so important. And maybe if you have a different one, what's a life hack or health hack outside of sleeping, now that you've already said that's your non-negotiable, that you would share with us?
I would give you a very subjective one, Rena, because your question reminds me of an interviewer asked me very earnestly. We were talking about the stress of being an entrepreneur. And she said very earnestly, Cindy, do you have a daily self-care practice, to help you decompress from all of this? And I went, oh, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely have a daily self-care practice. My daily self-care practice is I have no husband, I have no children. That's my life.
But I would argue that my de-stressor is actually my family, but that's to each their own, right? So last question is, if you couldn't do what you're doing professionally, or you couldn't be a marketer like you were in your old past life, what would you do with your time?
I'm very much about changing the world, as I said, to be the world I want it to be. And if I weren't fully focused on Make Love Not Porn, and by the way, this is where I hope ultimately Make Love Porn will take me. But the one thing I feel very strongly about, I want to get many more female founders funded. Because as I said, we have not begun to see what the future of the internet technology and the world at large could be when women are funded at the same level as men to build their world-changing platforms and companies and ambitions. And so if I were not doing what I'm doing currently, I would absolutely be putting all my energy into, maybe I would, be raising my own fund, being a venture capitalist, but in some form or other, I would be determined, and I'm trying to do this on the side, and if I can make a ton of money with Make Love Porn, I absolutely will do this. I'm determined to just help many more women get funded, because I just know how much better the world will be for all of us, and especially for men, when we are able to realize our vision of the world that we all want to live and work in.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
People can find me at makelovenotporn.com. Listeners, do come and check it out. Consider becoming Make Love Not Porn stars. Do invest at wefunder.com/makelovenotporn. I am at Cindy Gallop and at Make Love Not Porn on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And I'm Cindy Gallop on Facebook. I'm MLNP TV on Facebook as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Right back at you, Rena. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Rena Malik MD podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, do me a favor, leave me a rating and review on Apple or Spotify so I can know you're watching, you're listening, and you are enjoying this content. And if you want to learn more, sign up for my newsletter, Urology, where we talk about new research, answer subscriber questions, and share new updates about what's going on in my life each and every week. And as always, remember to take care of yourself because you're worth it.